Hello and welcome to Susie B Living's Moonphase gardening schedule for the next 3 days. I'm going to be covering Monday the 18th of September to Wednesday the 20th of September. So Monday the 18th of September is an unfavourable day, and that means that there's no specific gardening to be done. No sowing, no transplanting, and that's because we've got a changeover of ascending and descending in the moon cycle. When that happens, so we've just had a new moon, and when that happens, the energy that is there, it's usually about 24 hours, is not strong enough to really, especially sow anything. So I am going to walk around the garden, have a little list, see where I've got places in the garden where I can start transplanting all my kind of autumn winter things. I might start clearing a little bit in the greenhouses as well, clearing out of stuff, but nothing specific to any particular group. Roots, fruits, leaves, flowers. The other thing that I'll probably do is I will sit down with my catalogues and start looking at what bulbs I want for next spring flowering bulbs in fact, because that's a great time on unfavourable days. It's a great time to just take stock of what you've actually got. Just gives you a little kind of break or a little pause. I do like unfavourable days. Tuesday, the 19th of September, we're still unfavourable until 4 p.m. here in the UK. And after 4 p.m, we start flowers time again. So for my sowing part of Flowers Day on Tuesday, I am going to be sowing a cauliflower. And this cauliflower is called Orkney. It's an F1. It's actually taken over from a cauliflower called Mayflower, and it was one of the earliest summer cropping cauliflowers that you could get. That went away, and now we have Orkney. So this is a little bit of an experiment that I'm doing. The reason why I'm sowing these cauliflowers is because I've got a little bit of a problem on the allotment with woolly aphid. And they seem to like my cauliflowers. So I am going to sow these, and I'm going to actually sow 2 batches of them. And then I'm going to overwinter them in the greenhouse, and I'll probably do them in 11 centimetre pots. And then I have to see what those cauliflowers look like on the allotment. If the woolly aphid gets to it and they don't come to anything, then I've got these spares, and that is the reason why I'm doing it, because actually I've got quite a lot of cauliflowers on the allotment, but the woolly aphid is particularly bad this year, and it's obviously to do with the weather that we've had. So that's my sowing part of Flowers Day. So a job that needs doing here on Flowers Day is dealing with the bulbs that I had this year in springtime. So whenever I get new bulbs, spring bulbs, my first year, I always grow them in pots. And then after that, after they've grown in the pots beautifully, because I can move the pots around the garden, you see, I can put them into areas that have got spaces, I can put them on the patio, I can bring them inside if I want, I can also put them in the greenhouse. When they're finished flowering, I have lots of pots dotted around with soil in them, but there's not only soil in them, there's bulbs. And then what I do is I go around, I collect all of these pots with soil, and I just put all the bulbs into a pot like this. Now, I haven't scratched the surface yet with this, but this is a few bulbs, spring flowering bulbs, that I have collected, because then what I do is I use the compost that I had in these pots on other things, like I might top dress the beds in the garden, I might put them in borders, and I use them for different things. I usually for top dressing. As for these, I just go out in the garden. When I'm there weeding, I take this with me and I just dig a little hole and put in these bulbs. No particular way of putting them in with different areas, different colors. I just put them in wherever I'm weeding. This here looks pretty weedy, and it is. But this bulb is quite special because this bulb is going to start flowering very soon. Usually, I'm just thinking when it flowered last year, I think it was November actually that it flowered. And this here is crocus. This is where you get saffron from. And last year I planted them, and I planted them a little late, so I didn't really get a great deal of flowers. But this year, and I'm just wondering whether I should repot them. I think I'm going to keep them in here actually, because this little terracotta pot, that's what it is perfect for them. Again, I can move everything around. You can actually put these in the garden, and they say that they do actually quite well in the garden. And then when it comes to flowering time, now I am going to just have a little bit of a poke around like I always do when I get bulbs, just to see what condition they're in. There they are. This is how small. Actually, I think that's babies. Let me go for something else. I think they've had babies. Let's have a look. Yeah. There's a bulb. See? It's just starting to come through. It's very exciting. And that is a little baby bulb. So I'm just going to weed this, and then I'm going to start watering again. So what I did was, after they finished flowering, I just put this just into a border. I knew it was there because I could see it every time I walked past, and I stopped watering it. And now I start watering them again, and I'm going to have saffron, which is very exciting. That's my transplanting on Flowers Day. For my weeding and maintenance on Flowers Day, I have to attack this front border of mine. So this front border is new this year. We had to pull everything out of this front border because we had a terrible problem with ivy on this wall. And you can see we've kind of patched up the areas on the wall where the ivy was. When we took the ivy off the wall, the ivy was actually about nearly 2 foot higher than the wall. When we took it off the wall, it pulled quite a lot of the lime mortar out of the wall, so we had to patch it up. And then everything in the border really, it wasn't a good border anyhow. So we pulled everything out, we put down some weed membrane, and I've replanted the whole border here. And as you can see, there is grass starting to come up through the weed membrane. So I have to get a hold of that before, actually going into the winter is not going to be too bad, but before spring next year. So that is my weeding and maintenance for Flowers Day on Tuesday, the 19th of September. And for my feeding regime, I'm actually not really feeding this camellia, but what I'm going to do is September, October are really the months that camellias start to form their buds for next spring. And this particular one here is absolutely beautiful. I got it this year. It's already been repotted once, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to repot it again before the spring. So I'm going to do that on Flowers Day. And my way of feeding it is I am going to put in some fresh ericaceous compost. Just remember that camellias are acid-loving soil plants. Camellias, rhododendrons, azaleas, they're all acid-loving plants. And my garden in particular is very alkaline, so I can't put them straight into the ground. I have to have them in pots. So all of my camellias that I've got, I am going to just repot up the next size of pot, and that will help give it a little bit of a boost for its bud formation. And you can see here that the buds are starting to form. So I'm going to have beautiful camellias again next year. Wednesday, the 20th of September, is Flowers Day up till 11 a.m. And then we cross over and we go to leaves, my favorite again. So I am going to continue sowing some lettuce. two in particular. I'm going to be doing the Brighton lettuce again, which I showed you in my last video. So if you want to go back and have a look at that and see the winter lettuces that I'm actually going to be growing this year, then please go back and have a look. And the second one I'm doing is the Grenoble. So I'm going to put in another load of seeds. And I'm not going to do many actually. I'll probably only do about 20 in cells. So that's all I really need. And then I am also going to start putting in my other leaves that are interesting over the winter for salads, and they are beetroot leaves. So I've got two varieties that I like to use for beetroot leaves. One's called bull's blood, and the other one is a white one, an albino one. And those leaves are really nice. So I will pack them in. I'm not growing them for for roots. For beetroot roots. I am growing them for the leaves, so they will be packed in and I will be using the leaves. The other two varieties that I'm going to put in are chard. One is the rhubarb chard, the red chard, and the other is the Ford Hook Giant. Now those two leaves are great small as well for salads, and so that's my sowing for leaves day. For my weeding and maintenance and transplanting actually on Leaves Day, Wednesday the 20th of September, I have got a bed here that is freed up. This bed had our dwarf beans in here called purple teepee, I think they were, the purple ones. And we also had some fennel on the side here. So I've just taken them out and I can see that some of the beans are starting to germinate, and this is a perfect bed to now put my greens in, and this is Tatsoi. I don't know whether you've grown this before, but this Asian green is wonderful. It ends up like a big dinner plate size, and in each of these 9-centimeter pots I have two plants. When I prick out, I suppose, plants, I don't actually pull them out, I snip them off at soil level, and that means that I have no root disturbance for the other plant that is in there. I'm not going to leave two plants per place in the bed, but I am going to plant them with two plants now, because if something happens and a little sluggy comes along, I'm just going to show you the roots on this. They're ready to plant out. They're not pot bound, but they're definitely ready to plant out. And all plants do better in the ground than they do in pots. So when I can see I've got an established plant happening, then I come along and I will snip the other one off. And I might even eat the little leaves in a salad. So this is going to be the Tatsoi bed. For my weeding and maintenance, I have to keep on top of all the leaves I've got in the garden so far. And as you can see, this kale bed is a little bit out of control. It is very superficial, the weeds in this bed, so I just need to pull them out. Again, I've got a little bit of a problem with woolly aphid here, but I have quite a lot of kale, so I can actually get rid of the plants that are looking really bad. They can go. So that's that, and I'm also going to just get into my veggie pods and take off any old leaves that are rotting underneath my lettuce as well, because that is where you're going to get a lot of slug damage. And I notice, especially in my big veggie pod, which is the veggie pod that I've had the longest, I get little slugs in that one, so I just have to keep on top of that and take away all the leaves that are rotting and that are not doing very well at all, and that will help hopefully deter any slugs and snails. And for my feeding, I'm not feeding anything. This time of year, you usually find that for leaves, you won't need to feed anything unless they are looking particularly bad. If they're not looking good at all, then you might want to just give them a kind of multi-purpose feed. But otherwise, I start slowing my feeding down at this time of year because everything is starting to slow down in itself. And that is my feeding for Leaves Day on Wednesday, the 20th of September. So that's it. That is my schedule for Monday, the 18th of September to Wednesday the 20th of September. My next video will be out on Wednesday night, which again covers the rest of the week till Sunday night, and then I bring out the next video. So I hope that you will have a good week. The weather is changing a little bit here. You can feel it, it's becoming a lot more autumnal. We did have, I would say, about 10 days of amazing weather, really warm weather. So things are not really finishing off yet, not really dying. My tomatoes are actually starting to ripen, so that is just fantastic. And are you Moonphase gardening yet? That will be interesting to see. Well, I'm Susie B from Susie B Living, and if you like my videos, give me a thumbs up. It's always nice to see that. And even better, subscribe, because if you subscribe, then we can garden together. I just give you a few ideas, a few tips as we go along, varieties to grow as well. So it'd be fun, really fun to have you on board. And let me know in the comments below what you're up to. What are you doing on Moonphase gardening days? And is it making your gardening life easier? That's interesting. See you next time. Bye.